Hi, my name's Julian Gilbey. I'm the director and co-writer and co-editor of A Lonely Place to Die.
Hi, I'm Will Gilbey. I'm the co-editor, co-writer, and the second unit director. And if you watch the credits at the end, there's a few other credits we got as well, I think. So there you go.
Yep, absolutely. And I should thank our producers there, Carnaby. I wanted to start this film with some sort of super close-ups and then cut wide to the climbing shot a la there, which you shot from Curved Ridge. My sort of reasoning behind that was that when you're actually climbing and you're in close and you're really concentrating, you're not necessarily looking at 1,000 foot below your feet like there. These are our aerials over the Rannoch Wall of Buccleuch Moor. You can see the weather there is really quite dodgy.
So yeah, there was basically we did 1 day of aerials on the mountain, and that's basically you get 2 hours flying time, and you've got the helicopter for about 8 hours, but you only actually get to do 2 hours flying time up there.
And that's our first reveal of Alec Newman, who in the wider shots is being doubled by Richard Bentley on the Rannoch Wall there.
Is it Agag's Groove or January Jigs for the climbing?
Bit of both.
Right.
Bit of both. Those are the two climbing.
And all these close-ups were actually shot hundreds of miles away. All the sort of close-ups of the gear that was shot hundreds of miles away, in a sort of location at Scatwell, north of Inverness.
It's an unbelievable location. This I was told by another climbing advisor who we didn't end up using that we'd never have got Buccleuch Moor. It was going to be too much, too tough to get this national heritage Scottish mountain. At the end of the day, I think with Carnaby doing a bit of sort of phone calls, a bit of wheeling and dealing, we got it for about 500 quid a day. Yeah.
Well, we did. We were originally planning to take the actors. We sort of basically filmed this.
Just to say, that's a digital shot on the camera there. The camera was off, so that's a visual effect.
But no, there's sort of two main locations here. There's the one right at the top, which is the Rannoch Wall, which is sort of the climbing doubles and one crew. And the actors here are sort of about 1,000 foot further down the mountain. Or
yeah, about 800, 1,000 foot further down. Both on an east face, you see, so they've still got the sun on them.
But the original plan was actually to take these guys, put another 800 foot up to the foot of the Rannoch Wall and shoot it there. And that would have never, ever have happened in a million years, just with the guys trying to get the crew up there. Because you have to do about 2 or 3 pitches of rope climbing to get there. So it's never going to happen.
I planned this eagle shot very early on with the storyboards. I suddenly thought, well, if we've got a helicopter, let's try and get a sort of a bird's eye view of the mountain. I've always, and I was really pleased with how that came out. Obviously, the bird we shot a few months later, which was a Harris hawk up somewhere completely else. And one thing actually Melissa had a problem with her whole costume was that she wasn't very happy about her helmet. She thought it made her look a bit dumb. But then, in hindsight, she actually ended up quite liking it. I love the shot.
It actually really helps as well. Obviously got away. There's the one scene in the film where everyone's wearing helmets, but actually really helpful for filming because you can stunt double so much easier with a wig and a helmet. It just makes things a hell of a lot. So just
That's an epic shot.
It's lovely. Of course, the helicopter footage is shot on, and the whole film's shot on the Red One, which is a sort of 4K, very high definition digital camera. But all the aerial stuff is shot. I can't remember what it's shot on, but it's sort of
HD cam equivalent, isn't it?
Is that what it was? Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of stunt doubling going on here. We've actually digitally built up the side of the rock face lower down to match it in with Alec Newman as well. Again, I like all these little close-ups. That's me.
Yeah, that's you.
That's me doubling there. And that shot there upside down, somebody said, oh my God, how did you do those crazy upside down POV shots? And I took the 5D camera, turned it upside down in my hands while I wasn't, and just wiggled it about and hammed it up. And it looks really cool.
But failing that, you could have just shot it right way up and flipped it and flopped it, and it'd be exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
And that's me. There we go.
Yeah.
That's my one bit of stunt dubbing in the film.
That's more of my sort of POV buggering about.
But yeah, this sort of whole sequence was shot in 3 days, was it? Or 2 days?
Yeah, but we went back, didn't we? We went back in August to do, that's me, for example, with that's me abseiling, actually being lowered rather, holding the camera. Then that's back to the aerials. I love the views from Curved Ridge. You get the real backdrops.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
And it matches in. Those climbing doubles match in so well. I was going to say in the wide shots here that you'll see in a second. The guy in red there is obviously Ed Speleers, but now there it's a guy called Rob Jarvis, and he went off this job, and a few months later he climbed the north face of the Eiger in 1 day. in perfect conditions. He was an extraordinary mountaineer and wore a rather funny wig for that.
But also those poor guys, because I was filming them from Curve Ridge, and literally the weather came in, they were just basically stuck on that face for hours, just freezing their nuts off, waiting for the helicopter to actually, because it couldn't really sort of take off and film with the weather, so it kept getting rain on the lens, and you have to land every time you get rain on the lens and wipe it off. It's a bit of a pain.
I love Michael Richard Plowman's score here. I think he really creates Melissa's theme, you know. I think it's a really, really cool mainstream theme, you know. This is quite a glossy looking film, and I'm not going to apologise for that. I wanted it to have a quite mainstream look.
And then this whole shot here isn't something the helicopter camera people shot. Was it on the way?
Yeah, we were getting some very bad weather. This was shot as the helicopter was coming to see us, and the weather, you'll see later on in the shot, the weather looks horrendous on the horizon. You know, these aren't the most dramatic bits of the Highlands. I'd even call these bits lowland Highlands, but it sort of leads into the Highlands. And initially we didn't want to do a big title sequence like this, did we? We just sort of wanted to have A Lonely Place to Die and move on. But funnily enough, for two reasons. First, I think contractually we had to put a load of credits up at the start. And so I thought, well, if we're going to do that, we could sort of open and close the film with a nice Celtic sort of theme song, really make you feel like you're in Scotland, you know. And the other thing was it just it ultimately, if you have to do it, you can. And I really wanted a bit of a break. I felt we needed a bit of a separation from the opening action scene to Melissa and Ed and Alec just walking down the hill, having a bit of a chinwag afterwards, and this broke it up, I felt, a wee bit more.
Also, I love the sky here as it comes down over the hill. It's quite brooding.
Very foreboding.
That's the word.
Beautiful song, this.
Do you want to talk about Sophie Ramsey? She did the closing song as well.
Yeah, Sophie Ramsey is a sort of I suppose a family friend, really, and I got given a CD of hers. And I was just amazed by her voice. And then I heard this song, which she'd never heard of, actually. And I asked her if she wanted to meet Michael Richard Plowman, and record this song, The Burning of Auchindoun, which is about a sort of a horrible slaughter, however many hundreds of years ago. Auchindoun Castle was burnt to the ground by the Clan Mackintosh. And I mean, all those songs are sort of sad, tragic laments, and I thought she did a brilliant job with it.
And now we're back at Scatwell Estate, which is where we shot the bulk of the film. This is sort of towards, I suppose, the east coast of Scotland. We've just been on the west.
About middle, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, maybe middle. My geography of Scotland's absolutely terrible. I kept getting lost.
I love the sky there. It almost looks green screen. It was such a cool sky with there's a really nice contrast to the cloud and the blue sky, and it just looks really, really cool. Again, shot very simply, that sequence, just a wide and a tighter shot there, and it does all it needs to do, you know.
Aye.
Because we don't surf, I like that. That's Ali time-lapsing in August. You and I would have actually been on that face as that was being shot there.
Shooting those shots, those upside-down shots you were talking about. Yeah.
The art department's done a great job here. Everything, because I wanted that front porch that wasn't there. I can't see the difference between the rocks, the fake stones. That whole porch there that they've just come out of has just been added on. And they made it look more rustic, because actually they still, up there, Scotland isn't as rustic as this movie makes out in places. They had satellite dishes and all sorts, so we had to get rid of that.
Yeah, no, it isn't. You have a sort of storybook, fairy tale idea of what it's going to be like with all these sort of beautiful twee villages and sort of, and it isn't, it's not really like that. But
Melissa and I were in agreement, just looking at her there. I very much thought that the character of Alison was definitely a brunette and not a blonde. And Melissa is perhaps more well known for being sort of blonde. But having said that, she wanted to do the brunette thing as well. So I think it just makes her have a bit of a different look for this movie, which I really, really like.
Do you want to talk about any other actors here? This is our basic party. There's Ed Speleers, Alec Newman, Garry Sweeney.
Well, it's interesting because over here, Fred West, you got to give the man a mention. He's very famous in the UK for all the wrong reasons. But that gets a good laugh in the UK or in the theatres I was in. In the US, of course, no one knows who Fred West is, so maybe they'll dub that in the US Jeffrey Dahmer or, I don't know, someone else.
Yeah, except that, there's underground burial thing, so it's different.
Any joy?
We've had a right result.
That's basically Melissa was influenced by Scott, our first AD, who sort of
South London
supports dirty Millwall. And basically, she wanted to do a little sort of jokey London accent. And I think the fact that she smiles very sort of honestly means that she's not trying to do a good English accent there.
Didn't you read? You read?
Oh yeah, that review. I read a review that somebody said that they really liked the film. The one big drawback was that Melissa did a really bad Scottish accent.
And I'll be totally honest with you, she did a really bad Scottish accent, but
it's a terrible Scottish accent. It sounds American.
she wasn't. Yeah,
she's basically playing an American in the film. And that's why we've got a sort of a line later on, this isn't Yosemite, Alison. The weather out here does exactly what it wants. I mean, people from all nationalities go up to Scotland.
I do think, I think if you ever go to climbing locations, I think that's quite honest. You go somewhere, the people go for the climbing, and you meet people from all around the world. You can go up to Scotland, meet people from New Zealand, absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, God, you go up to Fort William and you've got Americans, Italians, French, Swiss. Everyone's up there to do the North Face of Ben Nevis and... and of course the Americans as well. So, that side of it makes perfect sense.
This is a classic. Actually, usually you spend a lot of time in films trying to write mobile phones out, but it's fairly easy to in Scotland because...
And that was another thing there. Did you notice how he has printed out copies of weather?
They don't have the internet.
Because he doesn't have the internet, so those will already be dated by a day, won't they?
Yeah. But no, it's quite hard to get reception, I found. Certainly when we were staying at the estate, there was no reception whatsoever.
Now, another thing that I'd like to point out is that a lot of reviewers, and maybe this is a fault of yours and mine for being too ambiguous, but Melissa and Ed are not girlfriend and boyfriend in our eyes at all. I remember in earlier drafts you thought you'd like to add a bit of chemistry between Melissa and the Alec Newman character, but for me, Ed and Melissa are most definitely, Ed and Alison are not girlfriend and boyfriend. A lot of people say
a lot of people think that, don't they?
Because there's a little bit of flirting, but flirting doesn't mean you're going out with each other. But having said that, because I do tight shots of Melissa looking in the mirror, then she's in the bath and Ed's on his own. People could construe that they're sharing the room or whatever. I don't know, though. I don't really like the idea of a woman in a sort of, for this movie, why is, she going out with such a little toy boy? I would have thought that the character Alison would have... done her Toy Boys years ago and just been kind of slightly bored of all that. I mean, Melissa and I sort of chatted about the character, and we said Alison's probably a bit of a serial monogamist. She's probably had sort of 9 or 10 one-year relationships that have broken up for one or other reason, probably, due to the selfishness, etc., of what her character does and loves doing. I just don't see Alison as going out with somebody 10 years younger than her. It never... So, a lot of people assumed, I feel incorrectly...
But yeah, I do think talking about her being a sort of selfish character in the sense that anyone who does really extreme climbing or adventuring or whatever, I think that's made a lot harder by having a family or a wife and kids.
What do you think of this scene, the actual sort of end result of this scene? Because I remember it was quite easy, quite nicely written, and I like sort of him doing the trick with the cards there. But in hindsight, it's funny. The other day I was just saying I'd have taken 2 minutes out of this scene.
Yeah, I know exactly.
And my wife said you should have added 2 minutes in.
Did you?
Yeah, her and some friends said, oh no, we really like that. It's got sort of, you have so... The one thing I would say for them is you have so little time spending with these characters actually enjoying themselves or relaxed that, it might be nice to just sort of hang with them for a bit.
Yeah, also that poker trick is something I do regularly and take great delight in doing, and you have yourself fallen for it probably half a dozen times.
I hate it. I think I've beaten you, and then you throw in the other 2 cards, and you don't understand what's gone wrong. It's like your world capsizes.
It's a really smug, unpleasant thing to do. And
I got to add here, my wife spoke to John Sim, who is the husband of Kate Magowan, and my wife saw him at a screening, and she said, "Oh gosh, I bet that was quite awful seeing Kate getting shot and falling in the river." And he said, no, I didn't have any problem with that. It was just that Scottish bloke snogging my wife that gave me the hump.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't have a good cope. I couldn't, I wouldn't, yeah.
And here we have the Eiger, this actual picture I took. I took that photo from Kleiner Scheidegg. I have been on that summit a few weeks ago, not via that North Face route, but by the Eastern Ridge. More about that in the extras, guys.
But yeah, okay. I think if this scene, honestly, could have,
I like this bit. I really like this bit where it gets more darker and serious. I feel more relaxed in the cinema watching this. I don't, you know.
But it's also actually sometimes you just watch something 100 times and you do actually know other people's opinions on it. I would have cut this scene probably right down, so would you, but I don't know. Who knows?
This bit, I remember you wanted to cut because this was completely improvisation, but I felt it was quite naturalistic.
Oh, what, the gist? Yeah, I wanted to cut, yeah.
But you know what? It's nice to see Alison smiling, looking natural and looking relaxed. That's pretty much the last time in the movie that she's going to be having any sort of fun. These shots were done in August. That's looking down at Torridon from the north. And now we're cutting back to May or June here.
We did like a week of pickups and we shot the film.
That was so much fun going back in August and just getting, basically you and I and Ali and that, we were just able to explore the whole of the west coast of Scotland, really, weren't we?
It's very beautiful. Marred only by the midge in August, which is just... I mean, you couldn't do a film probably, or I certainly, I think you'd have a tough time getting actors to do long dialogue scenes with the midge as it was in August.
Well, they did it in The Eagle, which I've just watched, and I really like.
Really
really underrated film, but they had so much wind that if you've got wind, the midges can't land on you. But I mean...
But they are life-ruining, miserable creatures. They do really...
I think this scene is really nicely photographed. There's nothing clever about it. It's just the lens choices and just the sort of... I also really like our sort of multicoloured cast. I think it really works. I always sort of thought...
Teletubbies.
Well, they were a bit sort of colour coordinated, blue, orange, red. But I mean, if you go to the Alps or the Highlands or whatever, I'm afraid everyone is blue, orange, red, purple, what have you. I mean, everyone... and of course wearing bright colours. I mean, I remember Alec Newman said, I really don't want to wear orange. And I showed him some video footage of Richard Bentley, who ended up being his double. I showed him some footage of him climbing. I said, well, look, he's a member of Mountain Rescue. Why on earth do you think a guide like you, who's probably a member of our Mountain Rescue, why do you think orange would be a good colour? And he was like, I see. Like, and I said, absolutely, it's for helicopter, for everything,
This is, I wrote this whole sort of sandwich bit. This is based, I guess, on how if I'd spent all day walking, they probably walked about 10 miles. If I'd done that all day and somebody offered me a smoked mackerel egg sandwich, I'd lose my shit. I wouldn't be happy.
No, I'm not with the smoked mackerel. It's not really my cup of tea.
I took some friends to see it on Friday night, and we actually spoke about that. They're all like, oh, I'd love a smoked mackerel and egg sandwich. I was like, no. Doesn't work for me.
That's not actually the view that Melissa would have been seeing from there. This is a really good location. This again is on the estate, and what I really liked about
road, isn't it?
What's perfect about this location, just have a look at it there, Wills, is the separation from the trees. There's a lot of pine forests up there where the pine trees are too close together.
Dense, yeah, and you don't
so
get
it's
any
so
light.
dark, you get no light at all. And
it's actually quite creepy. There was one quite near here I used to go running through, and it's actually really creepy. It's just like the darkest night, and it's horrible.
You went off and filled in a bit of this with second unit. In hindsight, someone going for a pee is not, I don't think, my ideal way of him discovering it. Maybe he could have gone to get some water or something, I don't know. But
well, you've got a problem with urination as a sort of means of discovery.
Those are just digital zooms, aren't they, into statics?
Yeah, that's quite a nice thing about Red is you shoot essentially at 4K and then you project at 2K, so you do have a bit of room to move into the image if you need to. So you can create digital zooms or punch in a little bit and stuff like that, and it's still sort of acceptable quality.
I like the sound design here as well. This part of the sort of movie, you're now having to create the discovery, and this was very early on. This was our sort of first couple of days of filming. And I sort of figured this is the scene that the film sort of pretty much stands and falls by. And I think this scene has come out incredibly well. I think in the script, what's kind of interesting is you wrote a lot of this particular scene, and then I was storyboarding this scene a long time later. And I think in the script, you said, Ed shouts, I hear a noise. And then I think you write, Alison walks over and sees a tube jutting out of the ground. And I suppose a bit like, with the Wild Bunch where he creates the walk, at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go.
I figured that I needed my let's go walk bit, and I needed a sort of a journey. So this bit coming up now, I wanted to create more visually interesting and sort of a scary, elongated out discovery of her finding the grave. The grave at Angel's Peak, which is what we were going to call it.
Yeah, but people were all funny about that because Melissa George played Angel in Home and Away, and people were making quips about Angel's Peaks.
Yeah, we belong together, you and I, forever and ever.
Yeah, so that was a bit, also just wasn't...
I like that. I put the sound design there ages later of the pheasant flying off, because I was like, you know.
You know, there was a film in Fright Fest called A Horrible Way to Die.
It was in Fantasia as well.
Or was it?
Apparently it's not very similar though.
There's one that came out in 2009 called A Lonely Place of Dying, I think, or A
Lonely Place for Dying.
Dying, yeah. So
I think it's quite a sort of Alistair MacLean title. I think it's quite a sort of 70s title, actually.
yeah.
Again, this sort of part of the movie here, I really, you know, created this walk and had them sort of cautiously following Melissa from behind, and I think it's. I'm really proud of how I sort of photographed this. But I remember Scott was getting quite worried because with all these camera setups, we were sort of going over schedule, and I said, "But Scott, once they start digging up the grave, I'm going to switch to handheld. I'm going to change the style once it starts becoming, you know, quite unnerving and quite, you know, we almost want to be completely like, God knows what's going to happen next." So still here, we're keeping the movement very fluid and graceful at this stage here. You know, you've got Ali's crane there.
That's cool. I like that sort of looking up. But there's a lot of stuff, yeah.
Beautiful light. Look at that, just stunning light. I think that blue top really suits Melissa as well.
But that's the other thing, obviously, filming in the woods, you know, the sun's moving absolutely everywhere, the light's in and out. I think it's a really good job by the grader, Tim, to actually sort of keep everything matching. Some stuff shot on separate days and...
Yeah.
What the hell is that?
Do you know what? It was really good performances, this scene, all round, actually. I think Garry Sweeney... Now, here, you see, it's our first handheld shot here, but it's a gentle one. And now we start to get a bit more
And I think I sort of...
Wham.
Don't leave anything behind, you know, pack light, he says at the beginning, doesn't he? And he takes 2 fold-up spades. This is...
Well, you wrote the 2 fold-up spades, but
Did
I
I?
mean, you know, you could have had them digging with a helmet or whatever else, but, you know,
But I never even thought of that until I was watching it the other day, and I was like, why do they have 2 fold-up spades?
well, I'll tell you, in winter it's very, very common, although people usually use an ice axe because you can dig a hole, you know, to sleep in.
Fair enough.
But we can think, but we don't fucking know.
The art department did a really good job here as well. They didn't want to make it look too ancient, like, I don't know, a tomb of Raiders of the Lost Ark. They wanted to make it look like the chamber was literally constructed very crudely and was obviously bought with just horrible chipboard from a big sort of DIY centre and that, you know, which, you know, was sort of quite, you know, and that horrible sort of air pipe was just some old bit of gushery.
Yeah, that was actually really cool.
And this is me with a 10mm lens. The POV shot, that's not me there, that's Holly Boyd.
Who is Scottish. Not Serbian, although she did a very
Now, you
good
know what,
accent.
looking at their shot again, and nobody's questioned it, but I will. If they'd actually opened that box, she would be blind as a bat for 30 seconds. You know, she'd be blinking
Well, so
and blinking.
If you want to talk logic, actually, looking back at it, these big chipboard sides, we should have
Yeah.
had slats. You got to think of these 2 guys dragging 6-foot pieces of chipboard through the Highlands. Do you know what I mean?
That's a very good point, actually.
Or just bringing slats in bags. You know, I think it should have been slats in mud. Looking back at it, but I only had that sort of idea.
Our
about
other
6
challenge
months
here was
ago.
not to make her look like the Ring. Oh, hold on, look there, that owl. That owl is not a creature we hired. That owl was actually watching us filming on a completely different day, but the light seemed to match perfectly, and we had these shots of Alec Newman sort of looking around the place. And I remember you were editing this scene, and I said, put the owl in. And you put it in, and it worked beautifully. We tried putting 2 shots of the owl in, it was too much.
As if to say, well, yeah, but it's great, a bit of sort of thin red line moment, cut to a bit of nature.
Where there's so much nature throughout this film as well, you know, a lot of it being midges and insects and butterflies. I think this is Kate McGowan's standout moment in the film, actually. I mean, Kate came into audition at the flat just up the road, and she was auditioning to a candle, and she was just so brilliant, you know. I mean, she was just really, really convincing. And, you know, won the part absolutely there and then.
Well, she's a mum as well, so I think that sort of helps.
Well, yeah, but I mean, she's an actress.
No,
so,
I
you
know, but it's got to, you know, it must mean something.
Yeah, I think she's got a really, really... And also, you know, from a point of view of our writing, you know, we wanted Jenny to be the natural mum, and then, of course, we're going to get rid of the natural mum, and Alex, the top climber, we're going to get rid of him. Holly's brilliant here. You know, there hasn't been a single review that's singled out Holly for wrecking the film by being a wooden...
But alternative, I haven't read a lot of, you know, a lot of people could have said, I think she's very good in it, actually. And it's quite, you know, it's quite sort of, because if you read the script, obviously the Anna character's there a lot, but she obviously doesn't really say anything. So we had to sort of get in touch with some people and get lines translated to Serbian, and then she had to learn them phonetically and learn the accent and stuff like that. So, I mean, she worked pretty hard.
How do you know
And
that?
she was only, how old was she? 9, 10?
No, she was 10.
She got pissed off at me, she'd threaten me in private.
And then, yeah, I think this is the first thing. Is this the first thing she's done?
No, this is...
You understand what she's saying?
No.
It's just the accent sounds familiar.
Now, you had an idea for a different line here.
Score an 80.
I can't remember
I
what it
think
was.
I think it was originally, I can say spit roast or something. Was it something like that?
You know what? Yeah, that would have just been I think just a wee bit too crude, you know?
Or it was, he says like scenic and there's subtitle spit roast, and then you see Anna's face looking incredibly shocked. But that obviously would have been a shit idea. So
That would have been a really crap
in fact, I
idea.
was joking. That wasn't really. But it was originally going to be, I can say spit roast, but I think maybe that might have been too far. I don't
Look
think-
at the light in that shot behind Kate. It's amazing. Yeah, that would have been a rubbish idea.
Yeah,
it would have
pretty
just,
poor.
It would
pretty
have just
poor.
been a bit crude, wouldn't it? It would just be, you know, and actually, now I love, that was the other thing you and I battled over in the script stage, was the logic. We needed to
what?
create a map that made the logical reason, why can't you all go down to Annan Moor together? Why, you know, how do we get to Devil's Drop? How do we get to this exciting sequence? You know, this film has to be based in logic. It has to, you know, so of course we create the map, and look, the easy terrain is the long walk around, which is nearly always the case with mountaineering, is that the short route is the dangerous route, and in this case a huge abseil down Devil's Drop.
But the tiniest mistake in there, although it's great, is the audience survey map. He goes, "We're here, and there's no trees around it."
But that's why we cut the first edit out. But
Yeah.
that's true. You're absolutely
Someone
right.
else pointed out months after we filmed it.
But actually, you see that Devil's Drop there? That's not vertical on a map there. That just looks like a steep gradient of about 45 degrees. So
Yeah, but it sells it. I sort of visually you get that from that. I think.
yeah.
I'm not an audience survey map expert.
Incidentally, it was Bruce Blagden who was our climbing technical advisor on set. He was the one that said, you know, we always use a blade of grass usually when we're pointing at the map. You know, and that was just something I wouldn't have thought of. But it's just, again, just with Alec, with the grass there, it's just another little touch that makes him look like a seasoned veteran of mountaineering, you know. And I like the fact Ed here is trying to be helpful. He's not dropping sarky comments. Already, you can see he's grasped the seriousness of the situation. You know, we like to sort of say that Ed was, you know, he was a twat. He wasn't a complete, you know.
Sorry, you're talking about the character right now, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Ed,
The
Ed
character's
Speleers,
called
a lovely
Ed.
guy.
Sorry, the character's called Ed. I love this. It's
And
a
that's-
helicopter
yeah,
shot that you directed.
Yeah, we did. We sort of did a day of helicoptering on the west coast for the sort of opening scene, and we also did a day of helicoptering all around the Scatwell estate, and that's basically where we knocked off all our aerials in one day.
Yeah.
And I threw up in the helicopter because it's very, very sick making. Being in there, looking at a monitor whilst just sort of you can't feel your stomach because you're moving backwards and forwards and resetting.
If any of you climbers can't quite understand the buttress there, that's because the shot was flipped.
Was it?
Yep, it was. Now here we are on 3 different parts of, well, that's somewhere else entirely. That's Corrie Shallot Gorge is the actual
Yeah,
gorge
this
with
is
the water.
essentially 2, 3, 4 locations
Yeah.
matching in for one. There's a location the actors can abseil down. There's a location for the Haston Step where Melissa gets
Yeah.
stuck on. There's a location.
Yeah, at least he throws that off a short cliff.
There's the
That's a
wide
different cliff
location.
there,
There's the
different
bottom
location
location.
there.
It was logistically impossible because this place we just couldn't find somewhere that sort of fit all the criteria of what we needed to happen in the scene. And also originally you wrote this. There was a storm that hit, which would have been really good. As she gets stuck on the ledge, the storm hits.
You need
and
to
it
get
starts
lucky
raining.
with bad weather. If you're going to make a storm look convincing, you want minimal CG, so you want it to be cloudy and miserable anyway. And the weather was so beautiful, it was never going to happen on our schedule.
And you'd need a
Green
rain
screen
machine.
there.
Yeah, that's actually something. A lot of people said it's nice to see. Very little green screen work, and I'm a big fan of. I think green screen. I think that's done really well. And I think that's actually pretty much flawless.
Well, it's because it's
So big,
handheld
big,
as well.
big,
you know.
very well done to the visual effects artists because that's some of the best green screen work I can think of. Because I see a lot of sort of
Some
green screen
effect
I
shot there
think
as
is
well.
actually pretty crappy, which is often people driving in cars can just look really bad.
I'm not at that. Now here, we've actually digitally taken out Melissa's safety rope. But this stuff here was one of her first takes early on. And this was Melissa, she didn't quite... And now all of her panic here, she's not having fun here. She's
Yeah, because climbing rope essentially is dynamic, so it has a lot of stretch in it. So sometimes when someone lets you down, you think you're going to fall, and actually you'll go down about half a foot. And
so she screeched and lost her temper with the climbing guy because she was like, "Why can't you keep me on a tight rope?" But it was as tight as it would go, but it naturally had stretch.
I've freaked out like that. Yes, it does. Yeah, it's dynamic rope. So if you fall and you take a fall on it, it doesn't basically pull you in half and wreck your insides.
Which is exactly how you want it.
But I think probably if you had the budget, you'd actually be lowering her down a very thin wire, which is probably much easier to computer generate out. Because painting out that safety rope took a hell of a long time, a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Because her arm sort of passes over it and stuff like that. It's actually quite complicated.
Fucking scary, Rob.
So yeah, all these shots, so that's green screen and the rope painted up.
Yeah, of course, she's on a top rope. Yeah, I love that shot. Bang. Nice sort of economical editing there. There you go, Chris
Newton stunt doubling him.
Who's in Rise of the Foot Soldier. That's such a cool location, that Haston stunt. Now that there, I love that. As you said, it looks like Jurassic Park or something. Pine trees growing out the side of cliffs.
Yeah, you just need some dinosaurs and the scene will be even better.
Yeah. That's right, she's making that here. This makes the audience jump. Digitally built up the cliff there. That's just great. That's obviously...
And then this is a dummy, isn't it?
Yeah, which we sort of corrected a bit digitally as well.
Yeah, it had sort of enormous, stupid-looking white hands and white ankles when the trousers got pulled up. It looked a bit stupid, so we had them play with
I
that.
love that shot at the butterfly. This next scene coming up is, we're talking much more sort of technically than we are about the story, but I'm afraid we've I suppose because we've been through the story so long. But here again, just technically, this location here, it just lent itself to just having a really long dolly track and putting the lenses on different sizes, and it's a beautifully photographed scene. This again, I don't want that sort of grubby, miserable. What's the word that people like to use? Gritty. And actually, it's quite nice. Nobody seems to have mentioned that this film is gritty, and I'm rather glad about that because visually it's not. Visually, it's really quite sumptuous, and that was a very deliberate sort of.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't
choice.
think it's sort of the landscape for grainy, super handheld 16mm potentially.
Wow. Yeah, maybe.
But that was quite that location's literally just at the side of the track, isn't it?
And we call that scene we just done Devil's Drop Part 1, and now we cut back into Devil's Drop Part 2.
So is that flipped as well?
No, that's not.
Right.
And so there you go. I almost think that shot there looks green screen because it's so ND filtered, but it's not. That's completely real. That's an effect shot there.
Yeah,
it's a forward and a background comped
element
into
that
each
they're actually
other.
focus pulling between.
All they've really done here, though, is just take a safety rope out, and the odd sort of path in the background on the other side of the valley. That looked a bit
there was
too...
loads of stuff in the background, like paths and white
There,
fences.
I just want to say, we've built up the top of the cliff there as well. And that's Belinda with us. Now, that's actually Melissa, but again, you can't quite see her face. It's a little bit wasted because you'd think that's a stunt double. There, I love this shot because in the same shot, her foot slipped, and you can clearly see it's Melissa and not a double.
Yes, again, that's just sort of basically...
Great green screen there. And that's you a few months later dropping a bit of polystyrene onto me or whatever it was, foam rocks.
Foam rocks, yeah. And then
that is not a foam rock. That's a great big rock.
Remember actually one of the first times we shot
gorge.
when we were shooting the actual rock that was supposed to knock her off, it hit her straight on the head. And everyone was like...
Foam rock.
Yeah, the foam rock. And it was like, okay, cut, let's move on. And then someone was like, no. If a rock hits you on the head...
You're dead. I love his build-up of the score here. That's good tracking, that. It's very hard to do.
What, sorry?
Tracking with the shot like that.
Oh, what, actually panning the
Yeah.
camera with it, yeah.
We needed that POV shot of her spinning, or we just couldn't make the cuts work, could we?
No, that was done months later.
And this is Belinda being lowered on a sort of a rig. And, there's so many different stunts. It's quite old school editing and cutting that together, but it just works really, really well, Melissa's Fall. I think it's one of the highlights of the film. Intercutting
I think it's
here
nice.
between...
I think that actually the shot looking down, the sort of shot looking down where she's going into the river and it's actually a green screen background, it really sells it well.
Yeah. Now this is not in a tank in Essex. That's actually up in Scotland. And this is Jamie with the 5D.
Yeah, it's just shot on a Canon 5D, just with those sort of surface level shots. Canon 5D with a little underwater housing, which is really...
I love these shots here. I love this POV I put there, shot from a boat. I love the foreground, Ash, just in the foreground. I love the sort of foregrounds and really sort of creating a dimension by putting things in the foreground. I think that shot right there would have worked even better with a bit of greenery in like that. Do you see that? That to me, that is that foreground shallow. Now that shot there is a 10mm. That works really
Very
nicely.
wide, isn't it?
But look at those locations. Again, this is nowhere near the cliff where she was, doing her climb. This is about 150 miles further north east.
Yeah.
Dream scene, initially probably creepier and even more horror-like. She actually there's somebody else in there with her.
That was right. She hears a noise behind her.
And there's something clearly in the thing with her, and then this sort of horrendous, creepy-looking Anna sort of goes towards her, almost like the Grudge style, and then it cuts and she wakes up. But I think Melissa was very, very anti, making it quite, I suppose, quite generically horror.
Yeah.
And I suppose, at the end of the day, maybe it is a better choice to just play it on claustrophobia. At least then you're playing...
I think it's probably scary, the concept of actually being in there, alone.
I like the sound design there as well.
But you would have had a huge jump moment there, but I don't know, would it have been keeping in the rest of the film? I don't know.
No, I don't. I think it would have been a bit of a cheat.
Feel a bit supernatural.
I think it would be a bit of a cheat,
I think, I don't think you could introduce zombies or equivalent
I like
to the film now.
This bit here, when I was at Fantasia, there was a cinema full of 600 people in Montreal. And the moment she woke up there was a gasp from the audience, and then everybody in the audience started clapping. They just thought it was a great fake out, as they call it over there.
Yeah, there's a couple actually in the film. There's obviously the thing with the hunters as well.
I like that. I really like this scene where she sort of slowly comes to, and I remember speaking to Michael about the music. I didn't just want it to. I wanted it to sort of be the rebirth of, if you like, I don't know. I guess the sort of the birth of the action Alison. That's almost the death of the first half Alison or the first third Alison, and now this new character sort of rises up, and he's got that really dramatic music to go with it. Look at those locations.
No, it's fantastic. That river, originally we thought it would be actually, some of it, it's just the sides are so steep, it'd just be impossible to film down, but we ended up just sort of roping down the side of it and crossing.
Yeah, initially we
dinghies.
thought it was too much, and that's why we were going to go for a more tame river by Rogie Falls. And
Right,
eventually,
that one had a really cool waterfall though, that was the only thing.
but this had way better sides. Look at the sides there and stuff.
And I actually said, and I think you were totally right, but I said, do we have to have the line, it's been cut?
Doesn't necessarily look it's been cut there at all.
No, I know, but you do. It's like, I was sort of thinking it's like Evil Dead 2.
One thing I was going to mention here, look at that there. You see the silver birch trees there in the wind, and also there in the wind looking up at the cliff. So it's two different locations, but it's windy in both, same types of trees in both, and it just links in so nicely with the edit,
I found that shot a little bit flat after the previous one.
What do you mean?
It's just the one previously, just there's much more to it in the sense of sort of shape of mountains and stuff like that, and I find the next shot a bit flat. But that's just me.
So here come our hunters, and we kind of, we auditioned. There were a lot of really good Scottish actors that came in for this. And Dougie there was in Ned's, actually.
Was he?
Yeah, Ned's is a brilliant film. It's a brilliant... Anyone who hasn't seen Ned's, go and see it. You will not be disappointed. It is a brilliant film. Stephen McCall's in it as well.
Who does he play in it, Dougie?
He plays a policeman in it. So it's, again, a bit of your second unit aerials. And Holly had been doing night shoots, so that's actually Holly's little sister there.
Yeah.
Doubling her.
I was actually sort of worried that they're obviously all doubles there, even filming them from the helicopter. I was worried, like, oh, people are going to notice. But yeah, I guess that's a lesson I learned. You get away with so much.
Get away with anything. Yeah, I mean, And this is sort of, you wrote this scene, didn't you?
This is based on, they're talking about a spirit drink. This is based on something we used to buy at school, which was a specific brand of vodka that was so cheap. Obviously, they called it spirit drink, and it was absolutely filthy, and I've never drunk it since. And I don't advise any of you guys listen to this too either.
No, you know what? You don't economise on stuff like that. Have a nice gin and tonic. I'm advising our 15-year-old viewers to drink gin and tonic.
Remember, drink responsibly.
Drink responsibly. If you're going to have a gin and tonic, have it, early in the evening. Don't drink gin at 2 or 3 in the morning, because then you're really, really looking for suicide.
Let's get back on point. Back on point.
Right, the introduction of our two main villains, who I think we've possibly created a couple of 2011's most spiteful creatures on screen, actually.
Yeah, they're not. There isn't really that grey area. A lot of characters are a lot of bad people. They really are genuinely.
You got to give them hand it to. They're
people.
single-minded. Single-minded. And I like this as well, you know, because obviously I think that the hunters look almost more chiselled and grizzled than our two villains, but you realise quite quickly.
But yeah, I wonder if anyone actually watched this and thought,
And
these
we
guys
were
are
rushed for
just
time
hikers.
on this,
I
weren't
think if
we?
you cast Sean, you know that, obviously he's the face coming in here. They're not going to sort of fall for that trick and think, or maybe some people did. That would be cool.
This is digital blood coming in when he's stabbed in the throat because we had a machine that was just wasting time. And it's one of those days where it was raining.
It was a miserable day. It's absolutely horrible. The rain came in and out. It was just,
But
slowed
actually,
everything down, got everyone
what
wet.
we've really done is really, I think, with the weather and cutting some bad weather, you did a few second unit shots like that.
Yeah. Sells it a bit more and you can do the rest of the
sound design they've done. Even in the background there, a bit of digital. Behind our hunter who's pleading for his life, you saw very nice green fields in the
there were
background.
patches, weren't there?
It looked too manicured, so we digitally made it look in the middle of nowhere.
There was a lot of that sort of stuff, just little things in the background that just...
Telegraph poles,
Yeah.
pylons, that kind of. They would have had to do that in the Lord of the Rings and all sorts of stuff as well, where you want to make it look as wild as you can. This has ended up coming out a lot better.
Than it did originally. It was just such a nightmare trying to get that sort of...
It's that out of focus shot of him landing that worked in the end. There's a little bit of dummy work there.
And then,
Nice
some
rifles.
people, a couple of people actually didn't quite get who the hunters were. And I think that deer shot obviously is explaining they were out there looking for deer.
Basically, it was a red herring. They were out there.
Some people generally didn't get that.
You could just cut them out and just have these two hunters armed with rifles. But why can't we have a bit of fun with the genre that we're in? I mean, look at Psycho, for God's sake. I mean, the first 25 minutes of that movie is about a woman stealing money and trying to get away with it. And you suddenly realise that's not the story. So they leave. We come in with an aerial shot here and bring in three new characters. Some people complained that they wanted to keep the story very simple. Just basically, some critics, especially in the UK side, wanted it just to be ultimately about the two guys hunting down the climbers. That was never going to be enough for you and I.
No, I think it's fun to bring a new crew of people, certainly.
Especially at this sort of point, juncture of the movie. Obviously, if there's, two villains and then these other characters are coming in, clearly there's a bigger story at stake. Great second unit shots done by you there up the river, with a double there for Melissa, and now cutting to Melissa weeks earlier.
Yeah, I remember the double who was actually doubling in for there. I think it was
Very
quite
important to have Kate down by the water there. If you're going to kill her, there's a reason why she needs to be at the edge of the water. Just from a point of view, if she wasn't gathering water there for her thing, why would she be right at the edge precariously,
Is that something you figured out on the day, or?
No, it's something that I figured out in the storyboarding.
Well done. Well, I suppose she could have fallen down a rock. And I think in the original script her head came apart and you were like, no, I don't want to do that.
Well, it blew up like a sort of melon, like a watermelon.
Like, I was thinking like the proposition. There's someone getting shot in the head in that, which is pretty shocking.
In reality, they could hear each other quite clearly over this river, so we sound designed a lot of the sort of loudness of the river.
Oh yeah, it's really not actually sort of very dangerous or rough. You could probably wade, you could wade across that easily.
Yeah, well, still.
No, but you're trying to sell it a bit.
Yeah, so you've got to ham it up a bit. Now, this shot coming up, that's digital. The background there, that huge waterfall wasn't there, but that does show that it's responsible for the
sort of volume of water and the noise, and
that's
that's
actually
right.
Corrick Shallow.
I think you totally get away with it. I think that works. The sort of sense that there's a real sort of distance between them. They can't hear each other.
I love this bit. I think Kate's face betrays a real truth there.
And do you want to talk? Someone actually read online quite accurately guessed what your inspiration for this moment was.
Well, it was two of my friends.
Was it?
It was Mark Jobson and Shane Dobby, and yeah, my inspiration here was Conan the Barbarian. When Conan's mother has her head chopped off screen, the head falls forward, and then Conan's mother. I'm talking about the original Arnold Schwarzenegger film, by the way. And then Conan's mother just falls away like this.
Yeah, that's right.
But then we've had our own thing here, which is bang, suddenly we kick it into the peril that, drags her into the river.
And yeah.
Oh, an interviewer asked me the other day, he said that is some of the best use of a dummy he'd ever seen in a river. And I said, well, there isn't a dummy in the river. I said,
no, it's
that's Belinda is doubling Kate McGowan, and...
It's kind of scary.
Who's doubling the little girl again? Tina Fey, Cecily Fey.
Tina Fey, yeah, the girl does 30 Rock.
No, not.
She quit 30 Rock for the week and came down to work.
No, there's Tina Fey going down there. That's Cecily
Fey, who doubled all of Holly's stuff.
I love this bit here. Now, that is not a dummy. That is Belinda, who is actually, most of the time, Melissa's stunt
But that is
double.
quite scary if you think her head's smashing on the... I mean, she must have had some sort of protection on, but, I mean, because she's obviously blonde hair, so she's got a wig there, but it's quite scary. I mean, certainly wouldn't be doing it myself.
I love these wide-angle shots there. A lot of people have sort of been very... I think the sound design of the bullets whizzing and everything, we spent a long time doing that. And this shot here that you shot, I really wanted to add the...
Yeah, this is just me running along the side with the 5D, and I've actually looked. No, it's not here. It's actually in a bit where you can see Garry Sweeney is just running along, and he comes just a bit too close to the edge. They actually said after that take, "Whoa!" I pointed out here. He just comes quite close to the edge there.
Now this
and he
bit
would have
coming
fallen
up here,
60 feet.
that stunt has just come out incredibly. That's obviously cutting to the underwater studio in Essex. But that stunt, Belinda, who did the stunt. She did that stunt where she wasn't going to hurt herself and she was just going to fly through the air. The rucksack was going to explode, and then she was going to do another take where she was going to rip the skin off her arms, make it really gritty and real. I said the gritty real one will just look grubbier. It won't look as dramatic, and she'll really hurt herself and possibly be off the show. So I might have done her out of a sort of a more expensive stunt, but the one which she didn't get harmed was better. And the other thing is that we did do an initial take where they put a squib on the rucksack, and it just sort of went and just dropped out, and it didn't look very good. So the second time,
yeah, it looks like she. I mean, it looks good, but it's sort of realistic. It's like she had a smoke bomb.
Well, no, it looks like she's an international
gas.
cocaine smuggler, and a kilo of cocaine exploded out of her rucksack.
Cocaine kept in a high pressure sort of cylinder that gets shot. Like
We were told not to talk about drugs.
Okay.
Obviously, movie-wise. Now, this here is a mixture of. This is a very good friend of mine and a stuntwoman called Jo McLaren, who's doubling her. I can't get the names out. Kate McGowan. That's Kate McGowan up in Scotland. Now here we are back in Essex, and that's now that shot here. This shot here is underwater in the waterfall. That's not color corrected. That's the actual color of the water.
Yeah, it's the peat.
And an American reviewer said, yeah, that the river was really filthy. It's not. It's the sign of incredibly clear, clean, good water. In parts of Scotland, it's the peat, the brownness of the peat.
It's a bit freaky though when you run your first bath and you're like, this is yellow. Seriously.
Yeah.
But then you get over that, and apparently that's cleaner.
Yeah.
I'm not drinking it though.
No, it's very, very good for your hair as well. Everyone's hair looks naturally conditioned.
Well, I noticed that.
Yeah. This is intercut between underwater in Essex, like there, and actual sort of underwater footage. God, that pool. It's an amazing location, isn't it? It's Melissa enjoying the
freezing
Scottish
cold
water. No, she wasn't having much fun there.
I think it is pretty cool.
It's very nicely intercut here. What I'd like to say is it's not super fast cut, and I really don't, because there's a lot of movement and there's a lot of stuff going on, and as the stunt people did such a good job, I don't just want to be cut, or pushing in so tight you can't see anything that's actually going on.
Yeah, you lose your sense of spatial awareness.
I can't believe my phone just went off there.
I do think that's a sackable offence.
Yeah, possibly.
Okay, ladies and gents, Jules will be stepping out for the rest of the commentary.
Now, you saw a jump cut there. That's because that was a different day, and Melissa was absolutely adamant she wasn't going back in the river. So I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to do a jump cut. And sometimes jump cuts just work.
But also, isn't that interesting having another 30 seconds of her clambering out?
Well, you could have had 5 seconds of her clambering out, but, she doesn't want to do it. She doesn't want to do it. This scene here, it's important to point out that, when he scored it, I didn't want it to be scored in a sentimental way. I wanted it in a way that... it was sad, and then actually, right, get on with it. Right, okay, there's a job to do. There's no point being emotional. You've got to get this child breathing again. And that was something that I wrote in a sort of a later draft. It wasn't originally there. I suddenly thought there's a real room to make it really dramatic if the child's down underwater for too long. And it's like, her face is really good. And I think Melissa's just brilliant here. I think she's just acted it really purely. This particular scene, out of all the scenes, we didn't have the right geography here, so we didn't have enough wide shots.
No, they're
here.
Literally like 20 feet across the river, aren't they? And
so this scene to me is a bit too broken into close-ups, which it's not intentional. Funnily enough, nobody sort of spots it. They just let it go on. But I remember I had to finish up, and you did a few second unit shots, and you needed more time, and I needed more time. I'd have liked just another few hours on this scene, but what did come out well in this scene was Stephen McCall's casual loading and the nice look between the two of them. And I remember Sean didn't want to do the point. He said, "Oh, I don't need to do a point. That won't add anything." I think it's really good that he does that. It's a real
It's very
moment.
menacing, isn't it?
Well, it's not in the script as well. We needed a moment between Sean and Melissa, and I thought that was a really good sort of. That's on a wire cam there, operated by yours truly, and that's on a truck operated by yours truly. Yeah, here we go. Again, different location. It's really good. This is something that was storyboarded down to a T. I love this. Ali's idea here, let's go and get a dolly. I said, we'll never get a dolly in time. He said, yeah, we will. And they set that up in 5 minutes. It's a beautiful
That's
shot.
cool, isn't it?
Yeah, beautiful shot.
And then
This is your aerial shot. Look at the top of the picture. There, you see the salmon jump? Rewind.
Alex,
Blooming great salmon jump. I love that little pool focus there. That was my idea. I really like it.
look at me.
It's great that aerial shot you just did of the two hunters.
no, it looks
Over.
nice. Yeah, we did it.
Epic.
We did it both ways up the river, sort of going downstream and upstream. And it was coming upstream worked like the best, coming over that tree. It looked cool.
I love this. Is exactly how I storyboarded it. She was going to walk. Now, my influence for this shot here was John Voight in Deliverance, and he wakes up the next morning, and the guy with the shotgun is out of focus at the top of the cliff, and that was sort of when he's got the bow and arrow and he has to get ready, and then we go in a different direction with this. But
Yeah, someone I was with, I went to see that with some friends. They really jumped during that bit, which I thought was.
it's
cool.
quite a cheap jump, but it seems to work, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
I think Ed Speleers by this stage, I think most people will be behind the character in the movie. I think he's really, really good. I think he's got a, and Stephen McCall is just so menacing here. Now, again, I saw, funnily enough, it was in No Country for Old Men. There's a bit with a computer-generated bird, and you just think if you're going to have a bird in a film, just have a
Yeah,
bird.
it's a guy just lying down off screen, isn't it? He just
Holding a
lets it-
partridge. He's got a couple of partridges in a cage, and he let the partridge
lets it
go.
go, doesn't
Once
he?
it was let it go, that was it. The partridge had escaped, and you'll never see it again. But
A lot of these sort of distant bullet hits are actually put in afterwards. They're just,
yeah, squibs never really bet. This has worked out really well. You did nearly all of the second unit,
Yeah.
and I like, again, that shot was something that you really wanted
No,
to
that
sort
was
of.
cool. Yeah.
And I like this sort of the POV shots as well, like there.
I always thought this looks really painful. I think everybody sells that, and it's actually shot at 21 frames rather than 24, so it's like a little bit faster. It just gives it a bit more oomph.
Real change. And Melissa's changed. She's no longer the girl with the blue jacket. She's the girl with the black jacket. Our reasoning there that she lost her rucksack in the river, so she'd obviously have taken something off Garry Sweeney
Gary, who just had a lady's top.
for his
Yeah.
wife.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
We actually worked out, let's not get bogged down in the movie where everyone changes their clothes the whole time, but it is logical.
Yeah, it's not a Spice Girls concert, sort of, where they come out every new song with that.
Yeah. Again, this is shot a bit simpler than I storyboarded it, just their dialogue, but it seems to work. Gary, I think, is absolutely brilliant here. And I think, I think they all are. But I love the fact that, Gary really plays it.
Yeah, is he going to betray them? Is he just going to throw the girl out and run
Yeah.
for it? Or is he going to step up and do the right thing? What do you reckon?
One thing that's interesting, this sequence coming up, which you edited. I did a lot of the editing of Big River action scene, but this end scene, you took the pressure off me. So you had a while to do this end scene. And what's interesting is that just watching that there, and just watching it for the first time, it hasn't even occurred to me that he's holding a fake girl. Somebody said, how did they get a doll? But I'm like, no, that's made up of camping mats. And, he's just basically got a load of.
I think maybe the shoes are a bit much, it's got little sort of fake feet on it.
Again, this was very much. Now, this was originally designed to be in a bluebell forest where the floor was completely purple. And it would have been really cool. It would have looked a little bit manicured probably, but it would have looked really cool, just a floor of purple. But we would have had to go probably to England for that. And
Yeah, they hadn't come out yet, had they? Because they
had.
come out a month later
no,
in Scotland.
yeah, but they'd come out. There is actually a bluebell in this scene somewhere.
Okay, brilliant.
There.
Okay, brilliant, yeah.
There was a bluebell in the background. I didn't
It's
quite.
not
do what I
exactly a
wanted to do.
carpeted sort of forest floor, though, is it?
This is the bloodiest scene of the film, and actually very late on, that bit where he got shot in the shoulder back there, I added a sort of a wet sound very late on. I thought, oh God, I hope we don't get an 18 certificate for that. But this was going to be the sort of the bloodiest
Yeah,
bit
no,
of the movie.
definitely.
Funnily
Well,
enough,
I
actually,
think-
probably quite influenced by Full Metal Jacket, actually, when the sniper's taking out the guys. I saw some of that the other day and went, oh, I bet a bit of influence of that went into this. I really wanted that shot there. Initially, when you were editing it, you didn't, but I'd always got him to act. I'd always got Garry to act. I said, think of Kate Magowan, and you see he slightly smiles. It's a really nice edit you did there as he's falling, and you cut to
Yeah, that is
the
a
movement
monstrous
of
sort
Sean.
of front and back squib on Garry.
I love
Also,
Stephen
credit,
McCall's laugh,
all credit
yeah.
to Garry. This location that day was just midge infested, and Garry just lay down in there all day, being eaten alive, running and running
He
and
did
running.
not complain once,
Yeah.
Garry Sweeney. He's an utter trooper. Him and Stephen McCall are some of the most
Also,
talented actors in Scotland. And you know what? I think this film will bring them to light for a lot more people, because I was watching Garry in the cinema when I was 20 at university, watching him, in.
Small Faces.
There you go.
Yeah. Actually, I've never seen that.
Brilliant film.
I should
Brilliant
have
film.
watched that.
Yeah, midges all over the place there.
Yeah, you can see that there. That is actually.
They weren't that bad. That was only some
No, they
early
were.
June.
They were. You were trying to be sort of. I don't know if you were actually trying to be or you were tough about it, but I couldn't cope. They were seriously damaging my calm.
Now this shot here, it was your idea to use the dam, wasn't it?
Yeah, otherwise they were just driving on the road, and it's just another shot of a car
Well,
driving.
that dam was just there at the end of the whatever it was called, estate, and it just seemed like a perfect.
Seemed like a real waste not to use it. It was kind of cool, and we had it there, and we could have done it. So yeah, it would have been a shame not to do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just nice. Anyway, we're learning a bit more about these characters as they're coming up to Scotland. Obviously, they've got an agenda. At the moment, it's a little bit. I don't know what the word is. Ambiguous. That's the word. A little bit of digital effects there on his little
Sort of
device.
his little his GPS thing.
I remember Carell did an earlier line and he went, I may as well wipe my arse on the girl if we can't find the money. And he thought he'd done the line really well, and there was like, no. The only bit I don't like about this, with Ed going down, there's a couple of shots back there where the rope looks tailed.
Tails when you hold it from below and keep it tight, so if Ed slips, you just pull it tight and it stops.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean. I think it'd have to be.
It's nice economical editing by here. We've seen earlier in the film, we know how it works.
And we did have it. He
Just-
was shouting like safe and off belay, but then we realised, as editing this, it was just like, no, if you're being pursued by kidnappers, it's probably best to try and be as quiet as possible and leave the climbing screams to sort of earlier on in the picture.
This is one of the very later scenes that we wrote to the script. It wasn't in the first draft. And I thought it was a really sort of a nice moment of trust between Melissa, Alison, I should say, and Anna, who's played by Holly. I actually just, when I was climbing with Bruce in the fairy caves down in Wiltshire, I just thought, you know what, we need another moment, another bit, a final bit to rope off the mountain. And I thought there was a really nice sort of, where ultimately just a moment where she has to trust the new mother. Jenny's gone. And now we have Melissa becoming the surrogate mother of the movie.
It's okay, Anna, keep coming.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Oh, keep coming, steady.
Dubbed the little scream of Holly there over the stunt woman.
Yeah, that's Cecily again, doubling Holly.
Or Tina Fey, whichever one, I can't remember.
No, it's Cecily Faye. Mark. I love the sort of rope. That's
You see,
obviously
that's obviously not
being
tailed. Yeah, that looks beautiful.
So it looks really nice, that billowing past.
Also, I
the
remember
corner
when we
of
wrote the
mouth.
first draft of the script, we obviously didn't know that much about climbing then, because you said, how can they abseil down the cliff and then get their rope? Well, as you can see, it's a loop abseil, so there were two
Yeah.
bits of rope. So you basically, as you saw earlier at Devil's Drop, they just loop it round a stake or a rock,
But-
and then ultimately, once you're down the bottom, you pull one of the ropes, and
But fair enough.
come undone.
No, we were sort of doing logic police earlier on. When I first asked you that, you didn't have a solution to how it happened. But obviously, there must be a way of doing it. Otherwise, how would climbers ever get anywhere?
Well, yeah, because if you're abseiling down off the Eiger or
You just have
wherever,
to
you've
leave
got to
your
get
rope.
your rope. You can't leave your rope. Sometimes you have to bin gear, though. Sometimes if you're in very, very difficult situations, climbing-wise, and, you've just got to get off the
You can
mountain,
have
you've got
it,
to get
yeah.
off alive, you've got to bin some expensive gear. If it means you're going to get down, no, just create anchors or
But
whatever.
I mean, it's not that, sort of usually a 5-6 quid bit of gear or something. on
This
it.
was a scene you and I almost ummed and ahed about deleting. And everybody seems to like this scene because they but as I think this question was on a lot of people's lips.
Why didn't you just
You know,
leave it
well, not why didn't we just leave them, but what if we had maybe just walked away from this situation? And I saw somebody on the IMDb saying the most unrealistic thing about this film is that they actually went to help the girl. And somebody else replied, well, I don't really agree with you because, like, leaving little girls in the ground isn't really the done thing to do. You know?
Yeah, I think to be fair, no, I think that's a pretty good point.
Ed is playing devil's advocate. He's not saying we should have. He's just saying, what do you think we could or should have done?
Yeah, fair enough.
Party involved? Police?
He just seems very naturalistic, Ed, as well. He seems to really get this scene. You know, a lot of actors, when they came in for auditions, just couldn't get the tone of Ed. And I think the character of Ed, I keep saying Ed because we wrote the character of Ed long before Ed Speleers became Ed.
No, that's your trademark. You always put a character called Ed somewhere in there.
But I think it was a good name. Short, sharp, no nonsense. But I think, in the wrong hands, I think the character could have come across as incredibly obnoxious and unlikable.
A lot of his earlier dialogue is based on sort of stuff I've said, so yeah, quite understandably.
And a lot of people think that the first time they meet you, you're quite
obnoxious and unlikable.
Unlikable.
Yeah, absolutely, and they still think that like 15 times, 15 meetings later. So that's, I need to sort of rein in my shtick.
Here we are.
Push for time here at the end of the day, so we did this all in one shot. With actors like this caliber here, you most definitely can do that. Just to finish off what I was saying, Ed brought a softness to the character of Ed as opposed to leaving him just obnoxious and irritating. Of course, real boo-hiss moment. You know, we got a Japanese kid that was eaten by rats.
You were
eaten
talking
alive.
about sort of shooting like a shot of like a rat at a pipe there, weren't you?
I think that could have been really cool, but
Do
we'd
you?
have
I
had to
think
shoot
that'd
this
just been
differently.
horrific. You would have had to shoot this very differently. But
I wouldn't have just shot it in that sort of slightly flat way.
I think that's pretty. I just thinking about it's bad enough.
Just a shot of a Chinese boy screaming.
Japanese.
Beg your pardon. A shot of a Japanese boy screaming, and then a cut to
No, that's horrible.
rats
That's
coming down the
horrible.
pipe
I don't want to
towards
see
him.
that. You don't want to see that. Just because it's not it's not this story, and B, it's just so horrific.
Well, I suppose you're right, and also, I mean,
I think actually, if you'd seen the kidnapping and transportation of Anna, I mean, I think that just would be really hard.
I think also, like, Robert Shaw doesn't need flashbacks of, the people getting massacred by the sharks in his Indianapolis story. He's just allowed to say it. This scene here, these aerials here with the ransom note, it's a very nice transition from one group of people into another, as opposed to just cut. We listen to the ransom demand, we realise it's a recording, and we've cut from, Mr. Kidd's voice with the green Land Rover to the silver Volvo and our three characters
Also,
here.
this sequence was originally, this first bit of dialogue here was originally still meant to be driving, but it's quite a pain in the arse shooting in cars. You guys couldn't get the car mount to work, and it is a real hassle.
I don't like
sometimes.
those wide-angle shots. When you're sort of forced to sort of just sit in a car with a camera,
Yeah.
it starts making it look very kind of low budget. And as soon as you can, get it static here and put longer lenses on and make it look a bit prettier,
Yeah.
Very good performance here by Eamon and Carell. And, I really like, again, I suppose there is a little bit of sort of politics here. There's a bit sort of, very dodgy sort of, father figure to the little girl. We'll find out later that she lives with her mother, of course. And that the bad guys didn't do their homework.
Behind everyone.
I like what's happening here. I just like the fact that, Andy, played by Eamon Walker, he's really just preparing Carell. He's really sort of sitting there telling him what to do, what not to do. And Carell's not like some dumb shit character. He's, he's a pretty clued up guy.
The two mercenaries, sort of little stupid practical joke on Andy and Chris. It's a sort of play on Andy McNabb and Chris Ryan.
Well, there you go.
And obviously ex-SAS, which these guys probably would certainly be ex-Special Forces.
Now, what's the line, Paul Anderson on the outtakes or whatever, because he doesn't have a line in the car, and he says, "You should see what I'm doing back here. It's a miracle."
Yeah. They shot his shot last, so he had to sort of sit at the back while everyone else was doing everything all day.
He's got a really good face, though. He's got menace to him,
And I think it's high time we broke out the guns.
Absolutely.
There we go.
Chromed 45s. Why we wanted chrome, of course, is that silver would pick up much better in the darkness of the nighttime scenes. Again, I have no problem with this story becoming, introducing more characters. I would have personally got bored if it had just been two goons chasing, the remaining clients.
You would have had to find out a lot more about. Yeah, I like this. It turns into more of a sort of cluster. Can I say clusterfuck?
Yeah, it turns into a cluster bomb, maybe. I don't know.
I don't think that's the same.
I know, but the point
meaning.
is, I like the fact that it absolutely, it's going to end in this is a late addition. This particular scene here was not in the script. I suddenly realised before we see them in the town...
We need to get into the road, otherwise
needed-
it's just too much of a transition. And also that car obviously there was just a silver Land Rover Discovery, but it's a bit too similar to sort of maybe...
The silver Volvo, people wonder whether that could...
Yeah.
I suppose it could have been Andy and Chris going into town.
They could have just bumped into each other and been like, oh, wow. And just skip the entire sort of
Maybe
third
we
act
could
there.
have had a few more dissolves of them walking into town, but I reckon they see a road, you know, and now we go into the sort of the final third of the film. I visually as well, what I really liked, American review picked it up, was that A Lonely Place to Die has nothing to do with location. It's often to do with the character themselves, you know, and in the most crowded place, if you're amongst strangers, it's the loneliest place to be. And this is based on the Beltane Fire Festival, which plays on Carlton Hill in Edinburgh every April 30th.
That's
And
me. Sorry, that's me. Way I look around there.
Brilliant.
Sorry.
Awesome.
It's
And
my-
God, those costumes are just awesome. To
Yeah,
me,
that's
this
very cool.
really picks up now. For me, I love this section of the movie. A lot of people have really, really liked this whole sort of police station being shot to shreds section of the movie. Some people think that the film got overcooked at the end here and a bit jumbled up. I don't particularly think so at all. For me, it would never have been satisfying, like I said, if they just stayed in the hills and sort of used their mountaineering.
Yeah, I was thinking like use their mountaineering gear because I was looking sort of as a joke to see what bits of mountaineering gear you could use to kill bad guys.
Yeah, it's,
You could,
I'll
like,
clip a
string-
carabiner in his eye.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. And to be honest, there's not that much. Maybe you can hang someone with a rope.
Oh, it's just,
Or
you know,
tie
I just
them
didn't
up.
want, and I didn't want, you know, Sean Harris falling off Ben Nevis at the end in an Alan Rickman Die Hard moment or whatever. You know, I wanted to see who the hell they were flipping blackmailing in the first place. And what I like is that, you know, they're not blackmailing somebody who's just going to bend over and take it up the arse from him. You know, he's blackmailing people that are absolutely not going to have it, you know?
Yeah, but obviously the whole point you find out is they don't obviously know.
Yeah.
Medical attention. I'll be in the next room.
And Eric Barlow there
I'm not going anywhere.
as our policeman.
Hi.
She could do with something to eat.
I don't know, look how sulky Ed looks there. That's great.
Well, he just looks knackered, doesn't
No,
he?
yeah, I know. But
Now that there is Belinda, who is Melissa
On
and
the
I
left,
suppose
just
Kate's stunt double, the one with the blonde hair there, that's Belinda. So you've already seen her all through the movie, jumping, falling off cliffs, having a rucksack exploded.
Yeah, she's pretty hardcore. Her and a guy called Chris Newton were the two main stunt people.
Just to say earlier, you saw a pub sign there. It said the Buchel. That is what climbers refer to Buchel et Yves Moor, which is the mountain in the opening of the movie. Buchel et Yves Moor, loose translation, meaning the great herdsman of Et Yves. So, you know, we didn't want sort of to do the pub and name it after something else. It was quite nice to name it after
And
the
this
mountain.
some of this stuff is really difficult because in this sort of time of year at Scotland, you maybe get 2-3 hours of night a night, and it's sort of we're sort of trying to shoot a night shoot. You're trying to shoot day for night, evening for night, night for night, and then it's sort of it's sort of in the grade and trying to match it. You know, there's sort of a million different things happening when you're stopping down to try and match it, and you're
You got something for me?
yeah. So but I think they've done a pretty good job on the whole.
Well, even like that wide shot just there, we were shooting this during the day, and in the grading they had to darken the outside here and stuff, you know, because obviously there's so little darkness when we were shooting.
Yeah, it's really hard actually.
In June.
There'll always be money in the world, mate.
I love this scene. I think both of these actors play this scene very, very well, very, very straight. I think it's, you know, I remember, you know, you and I, the way we write, you were writing sort of one section of the movie. Once we decided on the whole story, you take one route, I take another route, then we go over each other's work. But this one, I just sort of sat in a library in Henley-on-Thames and wrote this in a few hours or whatever, and I was really, really happy with it. I don't think we changed very much of it at all.
No, I don't think so. You did, yeah, because your first pass at this wasn't.
I'll leave in.
No, I didn't like my first pass. It went off on a tangent and sort of, yeah.
But this, yeah, you get a sense of, you know, just who they are and what they've done, and I mean, if you've sort of got that sense already. But
Also, this is the second game of poker in the movie. You know, we've had the game of poker with the climbers, and this is the game of poker with the biggest bluff of all, is that Mr. Kidd has nothing to sell,
no,
nothing to bargain with at all. This is his, you know, and I love the fact that he, you know, I love the fact that he says, you give me the money, I'll go off and phone you and tell you where the girl is. And in some movies, you know that they go, okay, and I'm like, no. Carell Roden is way too. Look at him. He looks streetwise.
Yeah, he
He's
does.
not going to fall. You know, other thing I hate in a movie is when someone's got a gun and someone else has dropped the gun, the person drops the gun, and then the bad guy shoots him. Like, never drop a gun. Never drop a gun if someone's pointing a gun at you. even if
unless it's the police.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but if someone's, if someone's holding a hostage and tells you to drop their gun, just don't.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what I really liked about the end of Deadly Pursuit.
Or you can sort of lower it, then quickly bring it back up and shoot in the head. I see that a lot in movies.
No, but I liked, what's that film? Shoot to Kill in America, Deadly Pursuit over here. And at the end, Clancy Brown just tells Sidney Poitier to drop the gun, and he just won't. He's done the mistake once. And then he just goes bang and shoots the guy in the flipping shoulder or whatever it is. I like that. It's streetwise.
That is actually a really cool film.
So underrated. I love it.
His parents decided they wanted to hand off a bag full of shredded newspapers.
So this obviously is a bit of a past history of Mr. Kidd. Really just showing you.
That he's international, basically.
This is another thing.
With his child kidnapping, he's in France.
They've been to France.
Scotland.
They've had a Japanese kid. Whether that Japanese kid was in Japan or not is irrelevant. No. Somebody actually wrote, why are they dealing in euros?
I'll tell you exactly why.
In Scotland, they're not going to stay in Scotland.
No, but I'll tell you exactly why. Because €500, I think they've actually phased their €500 note out because it's basically used so much for crime, because it's the biggest denomination note, I think, in the world. So obviously you can pack a hell of a lot of money into a small space. And I think actually, if anything is going to date the film, it's the fact that I think they phased that out.
Something else somebody put online and said there's a goof in the film, which is earlier they talk about euros, and then they say that Carell Roden says he bets 6 million US. He doesn't say US, he says, I bet 6 million euros. But because he's got that accent, he goes euros. Yeah. Some people might think he's saying US. He's not. He's saying euros. We're not that flipping appalling in our continuity. We turn the euros into US dollars. So that's an incorrectly mentioned goof. And now we've got our fireworks and everything else, of course, which is going to create a lot of the confusion and panic within this police station scene. Do you remember in the first draft there was no police station? They just went into a house.
Up in a house and fenced it out.
And then that just, and then we sort of logically said it doesn't matter how paranoid or scared they are, the first place you're going to go, it doesn't matter what happened, you're going to go to the police station.
But also, talking about fake outs earlier, this is also sort of another, to try and fake the audience out, I think that Sergeant Grey's in on it as well.
I like that line there as well, which says you don't have to be rude, and I like the response, fuck rude. Fuck rude. I like that, and he's absolutely right. I think Ed here, this is a real compliment to Ed here as well. Ed has got to follow, Ed and Melissa here have got to follow Sean Harris and Carell Roden, who are absolute heavyweights. And I think that this scene is just as gripping for very different reasons than the previous scene. And I think Ed and Melissa here are absolutely flawless. I think they completely draw you in. And I love the fact it's a whispered conversation, so it makes sense to come in quite tight with the shots. And,
I really like the line, even if he's not in it, what can he do? He's a fat man with a badge on with a biro. I think that's pretty funny.
I was pleased with that line, because that was me that wrote that. No, I was pleased with it. Well, it made sense as well. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, what's to stop Mr. McRae just walking in here
and doing a Terminator, I'll be back, and just smashing the place up anyway,
Yeah. There we go.
With a biro.
That's the one.
Melissa's great, yeah. She just... The audience here are Melissa, they're just sort of, okay,
And this is obviously Ed's character's gone completely on his arc, and he's now...
Yeah.
Where are you going?
We're leaving. Yeah.
It's not safe out there.
Where we're going.
Absolutely not.
And of course here we
Didn't you
well, the paranoia here, the other thing
didn't you eat a slice of the prop cake, which is regular cake, which they spray the stuff off just to stop shine?
They sprayed D-Shiner all over it, and I ate some, and then someone said that. Yeah, that was a bit weird.
Yeah.
Again, this is us, playing on the paranoia. Why not keep the audience paranoid? Who can you trust? I don't know who to trust. Why would you trust the policeman? But the policeman would be perfectly correct. You've come in here with this story. I can't let you walk out with that girl. And here I had a lot of fun editing this, because this is by far the sort of faster sort of parts of cutting in the movie. It's still not super cut for the sake of it, but we didn't have all the geography we wanted for this scene. A lot of the locations were in a different place. So funnily enough, the editing in this scene is probably most like Reckoning Day.
Yeah, it's stringing together loads of disparate locations that actually geographically have nothing to do with each other.
But for one reason or another, and maybe it's a bit of a happy accident, but because the editing's really quite frantic, and it adds to a lot of confusion, but you're still getting the impression of what's going on. And maybe by not having the geography, we're actually experiencing the scene much more from Ed and Melissa's point of view, i.e. chaos and mayhem, than we are with perhaps geography showing the gunman in the shot
You can actually see a few shots. The camera's sensor sort of
That's digital
has
blood.
quite a hard time coping with the fireworks.
Yeah,
You
just
get
to
a sort
say,
of white streak across the bottom of the image.
that's digital when that window gets smashed behind there.
Yeah.
But also when the policeman was shot in the head there, we had 2 seconds left or whatever. We had no time. So that was fake blood coming out of his head. Someone asked about those CGI birds. That's completely real. Those
Yeah, you
pigeons
start
flying
because
off
he
there.
was firing off blanks. I filmed that shot. I was on a crane filming that. He's firing off blanks, and obviously that's one of the good things.
I love this.
When you fire off blanks, birds go absolutely mental and fly through your shots.
I love that with the whip. I really do.
Earlier on with that baby owl, it might have been quite good to fire a blank just to film it and see what it would have done.
No, that's a horrible thing to say.
No, I know, but it would have just fallen out of the
The
tree.
owl was
probably.
sweet. No, he's a baby.
No, I thought I was joking.
He's joking, guys. He's not that horrible.
Please don't write in.
He's a softie, really. I love this. I just think this film. I think this film is just building. It's becoming such a crescendo, and and I still think Mr. McRae is doing it his way, which is he is bulldozing through the thing. He is going to get that child back by any means possible. And I love that bit
There
with
was
the sort of flaming whip and everything else. It's like also the other thing from the visual point of view of this whole end sequence is that it's a bit like hell. The color palette, it's all reds and fire and flame. And my attitude is, well, Alison's going to go through hell and hopefully come out the other side in order to do the right thing.
But there was originally sort of more just after this, sort of chasing through the alleyways, wasn't it? Mr. McRae pursuing them. They weren't initially sure if it was him or not, and he got mobbed up.
We didn't have a chance to shoot it
It was
properly.
just
We
time.
didn't have the schedule.
Yeah, it's just time and light. So basically, this film was shot in 6 weeks, which is sort of for an action film, considering the difficulties of filming. I mean, if it was studio based, you could do it probably quite easily, but abseiling down into locations and stuff like that takes a long time. So it's a really, really hectic.
But at least we had, 2.5 weeks of second unit on top of that, plus a week of pickups later. And so,
no,
we
I'm
did,
just saying it's pretty ambitious to shoot a sort of full-on, I guess, action movie in this sort of inhospitable environment in 6 weeks. It's quite hard. It's pretty hard work.
I love this bit. I just like it's not based on trust, it's based on what I can see in front of me. I like his analogy. It makes perfect sense. So stop fucking around. You're getting nothing until I see the girl. Until I see the girl. Nothing. And he really looks like he means it as well. Having said that, this scene that's just coming up here, we shortened it, but we added the line in an ADR, he's got a gun, so obviously there's something wrong. Yes, it's quite a sort of a short,
Because
sharp
originally
way of
they were
doing
like
it.
walking through the crowded back streets, and there was this guy following them in a pig mask,
And
and
they
they
were
weren't
ringing
sure if
an
it
eye.
was him or not. But we just did, the light fell, and we just didn't.
Funny
have
enough, though,
time.
having said that, you've got to be picking up the pace at this stage.
Yeah.
Now, funny enough, a lot of people have said here they can't believe you've just killed Ed in such a sort of callous way. Ed wasn't perhaps as likeable in the initial script, and the other thing is, of course, that Paul Anderson's character's already had a bash at the Yanks.
Or it makes that ironic comment: "We leave friendly fire to the Yanks," then promptly kills someone in a moment of friendly fire.
Exactly, and kills one of our heroes.
Because someone said like, "Oh, I don't know how that line's going to go down in America," but it's like the whole point is he's an idiot. He does then kill someone in friendly
And the
fire.
answer is I've seen it at Action Fest in North Carolina, and I've seen it in Canada, and I'm about to see it at Fantastic Fest in a couple of weeks. And I tell you, it goes down a storm. They find it very, very funny. And the other thing they find really, really funny is the Christian Bale line. I like the Christian Bale line. He's basically saying he's going to go like John Wayne in there. I.e., he's going to go mental. And if anyone has seen the Christian Bale rant on YouTube, they will know what I mean. It is ballistic and deeply unpleasant. And then, of course, Carell here reacting. We didn't have enough time to do all this, so it's quite nice. I like the blood on the lens there, but because we didn't have time to choreograph this fight properly, it's nice that we were able to cut to
Yeah, we
outside,
cut it short. We cut it short.
cut it way short.
Because there was a sort of bit of a scrap, and then they ran for the window, but it was just like, it's not working.
Do you know, as long as you got cutaways.
Yeah, you can get past.
The other thing we've done there, a bit like Saving Private Ryan, instead of blood coming out, which you get lost in that, just have puffs. Like
puffs of smoke.
puffs of smoke, which basically look like clothing, just
And then this is just mixing up sort of that's sort of a completely different place.
Yeah, that's not even sure there, but it's enough. This sort of manic bit, ultimately, if we'd had a bit more time, we could have made that slicker. But funnily enough, with the sound design and everything, it just about gets. And I love these shots here, but you just, as long as you can keep the confusion and just keep it short and to the point. Some people here thought this was just too much, where he just pushes the guy out the way. But it's that.
That's one of our main stuntmen, Chris Newton.
Yeah, he's done all the stunts in the movie, a bit like Belinda. He's had his moment. But, by this stage, Mr. McRae is absolutely full of rage. He's an unstoppable force by this stage. And, somebody said, if this really happened, the police would be all over the place. It's like, well, sorry to bring up horrendous subjects like Hungerford or something like that, but if
People do take a long time to react. And also you're in, miles away. They even say miles away from any big police stations.
You'd get, out here, you'd get an hour to get an armed response team out here. And by then, whoever wants to shoot up the damn place can do what they like. This scene here, though, actually, funnily enough, my wife pointed out, why are you spending time with Chris and you haven't spent any time with Ed? Dead on the floor, and I thought that was a good point. Maybe we could have had.
I was thinking, watching the other day, I was thinking we needed a shot, a sort of final shot of Ed, a little goodbye shot, just to sort of.
Maybe even Chris and Ed almost acknowledging each other that he got the wrong guy, and Ed sort of saying, I don't know.
Maybe Chris, actually, Ed Chris just shoots him again. And this is actually all this building front here. This is a set.
Yes,
they were building. This is one of the last things we shot, and this is a set they were building throughout production. It's just sort of every day just got more and more impressive as they sort of started.
It's really well lit, this.
And gratuitous shotgun pump coming in. One of the things I actually do have to, you don't do it in this film, but I see in films with pump action shotguns is people just spend every other shot they're pumping it, like they don't need to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just gratuitous shotgun pumping.
There you go.
That's Jamie Edgell, stunt coordinator. He's responsible for some of the great stunt work you've seen.
You've just seen
up till
him
now and following.
And you just saw him going through the window, and he's the coordinator of everything here. And I like this sort of this again, the whole thing of our reasoning behind this last part of the movie that I think was lost on some people over here, but I think most people seem to like and get is that for most of the movie the mountains are the very dangerous location, but by the end you're taking comforting locations like a police station or a family home, and you're making them incredibly dangerous and precarious, so that there's nowhere safe. There's nowhere safe in this movie to go or be.
Yeah.
And I think this is probably the most violent part of the film. This is, look at her smashing his head there, This is great. This, Melissa looks absolutely.
He's really scary, isn't he? He's quite sort of.
And look at that, just from the acting point of view, getting the knife exactly where it needs to be. Yeah, that's. I just think it's just enough, And yes, it's starting to get a bit Hollywood. This, it could be like the end of Scream or whatever, but ultimately. It was never going to be she was never going to have a showdown with both of them, and ultimately she was going to have the showdown with the more physical one. Alison's a very physical character. We were never going to put a weapon in Alison's hand. We were never going to give Alison weapons like a gun or a this or a that.
Oh yeah, she starts throwing like, sort of, belay clips at him, wasn't it?
Oh God, yeah, or an ice axe in the head or something,
They could, I suppose, they could use those fold-up spades from earlier.
Yeah.
That would have,
but she's lost her rucksack in the river anyway.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, okay, the fold-up spades are out of it.
I love Michael's music here. It's almost the one thing about this scene. It's almost like domestic violence or something, like Daddy's Home. The bastard, abusive husband or whatever. No, but this completely dysfunctional kind of. Family. No, but the dysfunctional family that this movie is. This is this terrifying kidnapper, and like in hostage situations, the kidnapper can become the sort of the father figure in a horrible way. And Stephen McCall wanted to put this line in.
Hello again.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And the only way that Alison is ever going to beat that guy is by catching him off balance in those split seconds and taking the opportunity.
And this gets a big cheer.
A big cheer, and also by that
well
sound
deserved,
design.
To be fair.
It was your idea to write him falling and snapping his back in two, and I think that
it's quite a hard stunt to do. It's sort of 3 stages.
Worked. Again, it's just quite old school filmmaking, and I think it works really, really nicely. I think that's a moment. I think by that stage, Stephen McCall as Mr. McRae is just one of the most menacing, most evil, and possibly most dislikable characters.
Also, I think that's as close as we'll ever get to having someone fall on a spike.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe. I think that's our sort of generic fall on a spike moment, but done slightly.
That's not green
differently.
screen there. That was Holly on a safety wire that was digitally erased. She really was hanging out of a 3rd floor window.
But she loved it, didn't she?
Yeah, absolutely loved it.
Yeah, she was pretty brave.
In the first draft to the second draft of the script, Alison has the little girl Anna, and she's holding Anna close, and the flames are burning towards them, and then she says, "Close your eyes, Anna," and we cut to black. trying to trick the audience into thinking they're both going to die. And then I realised audiences are too savvy. They know we're not going to kill a child. Not in a mainstream movie like this. It's not going to. We're not going to be chucking in infanticide.
Do you think anyone falls for that? I mean, because a
lot of people did.
Oh, really? Because we cut to black for 5 seconds. And it's actually that moment. If the film had ended and I was watching this and hadn't been involved in this, I'd been like, oh, for God's sake! I can't believe
it'd be irritating. Yeah, I mean, I mean, here's the thing. I think, here, I think it's quite a good. I think it's enough to convince enough people. So you've spoken to people who've fallen for that?
A
lot of people thought Melissa was going to die here.
Oh,
yeah, especially
really?
over in the festivals at Fantasia and Action Fest. They all thought she was dead. But she'd sacrificed. It was okay because she'd saved the child. And then we have to give them something back. I mean, we have literally demolished all the climbers.
Been quite unsympathetic with our lead characters. I mean,
we have, and knowing you and I, we probably, you know what, over a drink or two, we could have easily decided to kill Alison off as well.
Yeah. I think that would have been a bit.
Maybe the soft side of us came out. I mean, what was it Philip French said? A heartless but effective thriller. So he really liked it, but I think he thought we were quite savage with our leads.
With our characters, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think people probably are a bit shocked at that Ed Speleers getting shot in the back moment.
This moment coming up, the stunt people said there's no way he's just going to be able to drag him out of the car. But with Chris Newton helping him a bit, I was like, I don't want him to slowly pull him out or open the door and then pull him out. I want him to just drag him out like that, just be a complete bang. And you buy it.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah, and somebody was telling me the other day that was unnecessary to hit him 3 times. I'm like, they were having a go about violence. I was like, you've got to neutralise that character.
I also think, he's such a horrendous sort of individual, Mr. Kidd, that I just think,
I like that as well. Mr. Kidd falls down and then Alison rises up. I like that. I like the sort of the cutting there. And then obviously by now the police are here. I would have liked a bit more time here. I'd have liked to have had a tighter shot of Holly with the policewoman there. You saw in the wide.
Maybe, yeah, sure.
I'd have liked a bit more time to have just covered this scene a bit better.
Yeah.
We got our wide there. I'd have liked to have had a bit more coverage, actually.
That's
I think.
Nice, close in there.
Yeah, there's a nice bit of coverage there. And I think initially there was a bit more dialogue. And ultimately, I think it was just, you know what? And also, that was it. In the script, earlier on, Melissa gives her a kiss on the forehead just before she belays her down off the cliff. And lowers her down off the cliff. And ultimately, we said, just save it. Don't give her a kiss until the end when you're safe, And Carell Roden there is smiling, not in an evil way. He knows the girl's safe.
She's with the police, yeah. She'll be returned to her mother.
And this is
anyone
who knows there, that's a futuristic number plate. We shot this in 2010. That's a 2013 plate.
This here is evening for night and then goes into night for night. So it's a bit of a mixture of the two.
And there's the midges having
Yeah,
fun.
you can
Carell
see-
Roden loved the midges.
Well, so now having lights at night with midges, I mean, it does attract pretty large numbers of huge bugs.
It's got a really nice steely look to it, this scene, hasn't it? It's got a really sort of, much more desaturated actually than in other parts of the movie. But
I don't really think. Do you get the sense of how big his sort of henchmen are here? It's like
they were
ridiculous.
enormous. Well, the thing is that Carell Roden and Sean Harris, none of these actors are
Carell's
midgets,
about 6'3".
Yeah, but what I noticed from working before with actors, a lot of actors are just dwarves. But, our cast in this movie weren't, to be fair. Most of them were pretty tall. So Sean Harris is 6 foot tall, and he looks minute compared to these.
But one of these guys must have been just a shade under 7 feet tall. I mean, these guys did look legitimately quite scary.
Yeah. They were
that guy there on the left.
Yeah, enormous.
He spent some time in the gym.
Yeah. That's a lot of muscle he's packed on. And I think Toby found some big bouncers from Inverness and.
I don't think they were. I think he worked in Pizza Hut or something.
Did he?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Really?
Yeah, he saw him in the gym.
All right, okay.
I was like, do you like films? He's like, I love films. Like, do you want to be in one? It was that simple.
Brilliant.
I think there's good makeup on Sean there. He's been properly messed up.
Yeah, I remember actually Sean said, I think I should be taken out of the car naked. We were like, no, they're not going to strip you.
Yeah, calm down, mate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put it away.
Yeah. They ultimately strip him here. And Sean was like, I don't think I should say anything in this scene. I was like, try it. It's ridiculous, but it's a pathetic little plead.
Yeah.
If you can get away with it, you'll try to just buy your way out of this. It's got to be worth a try. And
didn't
obviously,
sort of Mum say actually sort of so glad that we didn't film any of the torturing in this?
Yeah, a few people say that because if any of anyone here seen Rise of the Foot Soldier? There's a
It
sequence halfway through.
it doesn't skimp on the torture,
No,
bloodshed,
that's the
or
Turkish.
extreme violence.
No, Rise of the Foot Soldier. If this had been Rise of the Foot Soldier, they'd be repeatedly stoving his head in and sort of hacking him up and ripping his fingers out and fingernails out and bits of hand. And the film would have ended in a 5-minute orgy of blood and carnage.
A 5-minute gore orgy.
Absolutely.
Gornography.
Dehydrated. No, I think, we very much wanted a 15 certificate, sort of, right from the off. It's...
But I think you can get away with quite a lot in a 15. I see some incredibly sort of bloody 15s. I think it's as long as it's not gratuitous, hopefully.
Yeah, and as long as there's not too much nudity, because obviously, the censors are terrified of naked women.
And men.
But actually, I think you got a little bit of dick action coming up.
No,
actually.
there isn't any.
Well, no, there is. If you actually freeze frame, prepare there. If you actually freeze frame there, guys, you get a bit of dick.
Calm yourself.
I like that line. Put him in the ground. Prepare my tools. A lot of people quote that back to us.
Yeah, something bad's going to happen, but we're not going to see it. We're just going to imagine it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of dissolves, but that one works. And that's you with a second unit shot there. You just wait till it gets a bit light. It looks good.
Yeah.
And he goes off for a different adventure. We basically said he was made of rock. He was never going to not survive.
I thought it
this
could have
movie.
been quite cool to just have him get, a sniper suddenly, bang, the window of the car explodes, and sniper gets on the radio, and radio's dark or whatever, and they've betrayed him.
Oh, really? Did you think that? No, I like the fact
I
that
said that I came up with that idea after we've made the entire film, so it wasn't very. It's not very helpful when you do that.
No, it's not. And I like the honour of it, the fact that they didn't break each other's trust.
Yeah, Andy's off for another adventure.
And I think and then here as well, Melissa didn't cry during the movie. There's no part where the character of Alison's crying, and then I think finally she's allowed to just relax and break down. And Sophie Ramsey, who sung the opening track of The Burning of Auchindoun, is now here singing the closing track about King
Where did you
James.
hear? Where did you hear these songs, or did you source them, or did Michael?
This isn't one that we recorded. This is one that she recorded on her album.
Oh, okay.
And it was.
Okay, yeah, we're done.
Well, yeah, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Super 8 footage and my thoughts behind it. Throughout the movie, you see some sort of, or rather, throughout these credits, you see some Super 8 footage which comes on screen about now. We needed a little bit of gap from the movie before bringing it up, I think. So a few credits, and there we are. So this is that's the waterfall that
we comped in earlier on in the sequence of the.
Yeah, not from my Super 8 footage, obviously.
No.
And then it was nice here was to just see the characters again, just re-bring back to life, or at least in sort of a way, just to see them all having fun towards the beginning of their holiday. And then ultimately, I sort of filmed it with scenery shots that we shot throughout. A lot of that was shot in the August when we went back up.
Pickup shooting.
And then here, what I did is I did a transition from, as you can see, a sort of a summer shot there. I did a load of Super 8 footage, winter mountaineering that spring, which I was always going to use. And that's on the Anahigak in Glencoe, one of the most amazing days winter climbing. And that's basically where I sort of wanted to show what potentially might be their early footage or shots of the climbers. And it's really just meant to be sort of the environment in general. That's my eye sacs there. It's just meant to sort of just keep the feel of the film. And right there is being filmed on Buccleuch Moor, where we shot the opening scene. That's abseiling down Curve Ridge in winter. And actually 2 weeks after we came off there in February 2010, 2 people got killed on Buccleuch Moor in an avalanche on the east face, which is very, very unlikely. But then I was told the other day, actually, it was a horrible, really strange day, and people just didn't want to be on the mountains that day.
It is quite, I remember going into a shop just to buy sandwiches or something and telling them we were going up Buccleuch Moor one day, and the lady behind the thing just said, be careful, that mountain's a killer.
Well,
which really did my calm a lot of good when we went to climb like that.
Well, you did it in
Wall.
Summer 2009, and the thing was that, Buccleuch Moor had killed 3 people that winter, and then 2 people the following winter, all in avalanche. Again, that's the view from the opening scene, but in wintertime. That's Richard Bentley, who of course doubled
Alec Newman in the opening scene.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's worth mentioning. It's very, very, very serious environment. Very serious environment that we were shooting in. And it's not to be underestimated. People are killed up in the Scottish mountains every winter and every summer. Thankfully, not as many as in the Alps, where I've just come back from. That's Bucharest is more in the winter there. But it's just. I think it's really nice just to keep these Super 8 sort of shots flowing on, and just it gives a I think a sort of an extra sort of nice sort of bit of closure to the movie,
Yeah, it's nice.
And a lot of it was done, that was actually at this waterfall. Where was it? Rogie Falls, where
That was where we were going to shoot the river stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was it would have been great if we could have done a mix and match of the two, but it's just like shift that waterfall there.
Yeah, that was a cool waterfall.
It was it's just sort of getting the crew to
now
that location.
that's the Rannoch Wall from the opening scene. That's the north face of the Eiger from the station window. And that's about 2,500 foot up the north face of the Eiger there. And that's also out in the Alps. I wanted to cut some shots in of the Alps because obviously the Alison character was talking about climbing the Eiger, and so I wanted this to look like potentially some of her footage. So we end there on the north face of the Eiger, perhaps Alison's next challenge.